Since joining the company in 1987, Tim Walden has held various leadership positions in the engineering and operations organization. As Senior Vice President of Engineering and Construction, Walden and his team are responsible for the implementation of CenturyLink's network investment programs.
Well, good morning. First, I want to thank Sharon and Janice and the ISC team for putting on a wonderful event. This has been a fantastic opportunity. You know, one of the things about this event is the collaboration of industry leaders and technology subject matter experts really coming together in a spirit of collaboration and education. In addition, I want to thank my team that's over here, keep me straight, make sure I don't go too far out of the sandbox. So again, thanks for each one of you in your attendance. Transformation has been something that we've talked about a lot over the last couple of days. You heard Amir in his talk yesterday about the perpetual transformation that we've seen in the industry. The work that's got to go on and the transformation that we're going to see in the product roadmap over the next months and years ahead. What I'm going to spend some time on here today is what is the implementation, what's the supply chain, and how do we transform or migrate from, the very siloed, transactional-based supply chain that we're in today to a more proactive, results-oriented ecosystem. So a lot of discussion I think we can have, and really I want to share with you, this is not my solution to that, but really my request of the industry to let's work together and collaborate to be able to work through some of these challenges. So from an outlook perspective, great outlook. We're making a lot of investments in the network, really making a sea change as we think about our network and our technology investments. We got national programs such as CAF that's driving incremental HSI and broadband capability into the rural markets that haven't been served before. Network consumption, we're seeing a doubling of network bandwidth every year. You've got customer timeline expectations. The customers are no longer expecting, and they're demanding real-time customer connection, real-time inventory, real-time capability in the networks. The Internet of Things, thousands, millions of devices that we're going to be connecting to the network that never had a place, never had a function, nor never had a presence in the network. And we've got to think about how do we manage that and how do we provide a service component relative to those. Fiber to the X. I mean, we're nailing fiber down to anything that'll stand still longer than 30 minutes. Vectoring. A lot of great work in technology and innovation here. A lot of new placement to be able to bring system-level vectoring and drive the capability to bring 100 meg services deeper within the network, leveraging existing copper infrastructure and being able to drive service components deeper in the network without full overbuilds. New housing starts. We're seeing 20+% compounded growth in new housing starts every year. New infrastructure, new dirt, new placements. All of this is creating considerable pressures on the infrastructure and the ecosystem that we currently have out there, compounded with the consumption and growth. We've got to continue to look at the competing and parallel network builds that we've got going on. It truly does take a village to build a network. The current ecosystem, in my mind, is very fragile. It's oversubscribed. We have all of the new challenges that are out there to be able to support the inventories, to support the transformational services that we've got ahead of us. We got multiple weak links and single points of failure. You've got permissions processes. You've got permits, DOT, all of which have individual revenue and expense constraints that we all have to deal with, and that permissions process creates timelines and builds timelines into the service delivery that we have. Manufacturing capability and delivery pressures. Material inventories. When's the last time we could have a conversation about stocking orders for fiber? We've got to think through and work very, very differently about how we have these inventories to be able to support the needs that we've got in the network over the next few years. Aging and static workforces. Different companies, but as an industry, I believe that about 40% of the workforce is retirement eligible. We're losing skill sets or potential to lose skill sets around technical capability, splicing, placing, construction, without a very good ecosystem to basically continue to fill that funnel. We're in a process of repeat right-of-way entries. We're going into the same right-of-ways multiple times. I mean, we as an industry need to be thinking about how do we do joint trenching and those types of pieces. And then again, as you think about all of this, you think about all of the opportunity that we have, we need to continue to think about the broadband economics. How do we continue to innovate and drive lower cost per bit into the marketplace, and our investments being able to sustain the revenue streams that we currently have out there? So just to kind of share with you my thoughts around, how do we think about this differently? First and foremost, my opinion, legacy processes do not apply. We cannot get where we need to go just by improving legacy process. We've got to evolve and transform into a proactive environment with partnering at the core. We've got to have predictable production, third-party engagement, and we've got to continue that thought leadership and transformation. So just spending a little time. So from a proactive project management perspective, we need to have an ecosystem associated to anticipate production. What are those obstacles that are going to impede our timelines? We have to anticipate, we have to have proactive solution sets, we need to have bench strengths of resources as well as material, and we need total supply. And what I mean by total supply is, rather than having various associated paths of the supply chain, how do we bring that together in a kitted, total solution that when the contractors or our placement resources get the material, they can actually bring it, make one trip to the site, and build the site one time without making multiple trips. Partnering and collaboration. This probably is the most important. We've got to really change the environment that we work in. In today's environment, many times we get into a service provider, vendor type of relationship. It's very transactional, it's typically confrontational. How do we change this into a partnering environment that we actually create and improve communication? We bring our ecosystem into the pre-planning processes, and that we work through these solutions in real time, such that when it's time for construction season, everybody's planned, everybody's got their outlook, and the ecosystem is primed and ready to go the 1st of January. Joint construction. This is a little bit like dogs and cats living together. Typically today, CenturyLink will go out, we'll build facilities. The cable providers, they'll build facilities. The new entrants into the marketplaces, they'll build their facilities. How do we think about this very different? How do we think about the potential of joint partnering that reduces our infrastructure cost, as well as reduces the impact to the supporting permissions ecosystem, and then brings a faster time to market for everybody? We've got to start having those dialogues. Predictable production. We've got to have accountable partners. We've got to basically commit the commitments that we make, we have to hold. The ecosystem has to have measurable productivity with visibility and reporting on a very proactive basis. And there's got to continue to be that communication piece where we're working through to proactively solve problems rather than getting into the triage methodology that we're currently in. Third-party enablement. I don't want to pick on the municipalities here because, again, we all have our own challenges. But as we think about municipalities, we think about permitting agencies, we think about third party, whether they be power company and pole attachments and the like. Everybody has their own kind of process. How do we work through to automate? How do we build and tighten that partnership? How do we take the people out to be able to lower the cost structure, continue to drive the economic development that these broadband networks are going to provide, and we do it in a manner that doesn't create bottlenecks back into some permissions agency. And then lastly, again, just a request to each one of you, how do we continue? And we've got to continue with the thought leadership that we need to continue to drive the innovation into the network. How do we think about new construction techniques? How do we think about new opportunities for re-entry into the right-of-way? How do we think about new cost structures? All of these things are the pieces that we've got to collectively as an industry partner through to be able to make sure that we have the supporting infrastructure to to support that service transformation that we've all been talking about the last 2 days. So with that, I want to leave you with what I believe to be a very relevant quote from Mario Andretti. And the key thing is, if everything seems to be under control, you're not going fast enough. So thank you, and look forward to further dialogue.